I, DJ Nubis, and with my partner in crime, Edgar Allan Poet, the Poet King.
I'm the man of many names,
It's a
but one
Poetic
existence.
Carnage, Slim Pickens version of our regular show. We're breaking down the NFL, the playoffs, and we're into the conference championships now, but we're going to go back and review what happened last weekend because really kind of strange. I mean, I think we kind of saw some things, but some things we didn't see. Especially we'll start with the Jaguars and Chiefs. Both of us thought the Chiefs would pretty much roll pretty easily in this game, and in some ways they did. They won 27-17, but really the Jaguars impressed me with the way they were able to keep staying in this game. And I want to get your thoughts on how you felt about that game and how it played out.
Yeah, this is everyone. This is Sugar. She's decided to enter.
Hi, puppy dog.
Yes, she is a big football fan, and loves blitzing, I guess. So here's the thing with that game. As bad as Lawrence looked in his first game, he looked real good in the second one. And I know he kind of faltered towards the end. I think he was just kind of ran up against the better team. But ultimately, Trevor Lawrence, I would give him grading on a curve, probably an 8 out of 10. I thought the Jaguars, I thought their skill position players came to play. I don't think their defense played as well as I would have thought they would have, but Mahomes being hurt definitely helped. Ultimately, for the Jaguars, they came into this postseason on a hot streak, winning a really bad division, gutted out one of the most memorable playoff games in recent memory. And they at least did not embarrass themselves against the team that everyone's picking to win the Super Bowl, and who has arguably the best coach in football, probably the best quarterback in football, probably the soon-to-be two-time MVP, and with a tight end who had one of the best seasons the tight end has ever had. So there's no such thing as silver lining in a loss, but next closest thing is this game. I will say this for them. They need some help on the offensive line. They need some help on the defensive line. I can't remember the guy's last name, but he just had penalty after penalty and kept getting beat and beat and beat, and it was just like, bro, you can't do this. I would, however, in summation, I would say this: I still don't think they have a go-to guy, a guy on third down that they can get the ball to consistently. It feels like they're trying to make Marvin Jones Jr. that guy, but he's 32, turning 33. They could use they could use a third down and move the chains type guy, but they did not embarrass themselves. They had a great year.
Yeah, you look back to the first game against the Chargers and how they were down 27-0 at one point. It's like coming back in that game and then playing strong against KC was the best thing it could be for that franchise. Like going forward, if you're trying to build something there, this is the best way to do it because you showed that there's progress. Oh, yeah. And they got some stuff to work on, but I think they've got a good quarterback and they've got a good future there. Sticking with the AFC, Bengals winning the Buffalo. This is probably the biggest surprise to me. And I know the commentators, while I was at work when this game was playing, but I was watching it on my phone while I'm driving around. And the commentators were like, they thought, and this is Tony Romo talking. He's like, I thought the offensive line would be the worst part of this game, but they have played outstanding against the Buffalo defense.
Yeah.
That's really like the crux of it, because whereas Buffalo, they really struggled to protect Allen. And then there was talk like, Allen should be running the ball more, but
he couldn't. They had, if people wanted him to scramble more, right? Cincinnati had containment all night long, and if you wanted more designed running plays up the gut, that would be the more reasonable argument to me. The thing with Buffalo is, and I will pat myself on the back because I did predict a convincing victory for the Bengals. Unfortunately,
I did not. What I picked, but I did pick Bengals, but I don't think it was going to be this big.
Well, the fact that you picked the Bengals puts you in the glorious minority of being correct because everyone was picking Buffalo.
Well, you and I had talked throughout the year as we were doing our rankings. I kept dropping Buffalo. There was a problem there.
Yeah,
and it was with turnovers. It was the injuries. And I'm like, they're in trouble. Like, if they run into the wrong team, they're going to have some problems.
And they ran into that team.
Right.
They ran into the Bengals are always a tough matchup problem, and to kind of sync those two ideas with what you said, like roster issues and why the Bengals were roster problems, it actually goes hand in hand. If you look at Buffalo, like on offense, their best running back was Cook, who didn't get to play much because of injuries, and he was a rookie, right? So you have their starter, nice running back, but he's just solid. Nothing game breaking about him. He was kind of like Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. He's going to get you 4 yards a game, or 4 yard not in game, 4 yards a carry and not fumble. That's basically what he offered you. There, Gabriel Davis, wildly inconsistent. He's really a wide receiver 3. He's close.
Did he drop a touchdown pass early?
He had a big drop. He had a huge catch too. He's more Van Jefferson from the Rams than he is T Higgins or Mike Wallace if you want a number 2 wideout who was a burner for a better comp. The fact of the matter is, Josh Allen. I'm not making excuses for him because he should have played better, but if you look at his running back, his second wide receiver, I don't even know who his third wide receiver is. I know that guy doesn't matter. That's what I know. And his tight end's pretty good. But you compare that to what the Bengals have, like, it's like Stephon Diggs, you could argue is better than Chase or on the same tier. I think Chase is the best wideout in football.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Higgins, you look at Boyd, you look at all these things. One guy has more weapons, the other guy doesn't. With Burrow, we used to say, well, what holds him back is the offensive line. And then his head coach must have learned from that awful game on primetime against the Browns where they were outchased and they just didn't run the ball.
Yeah, and I think
he ran the ball.
I think what they did was similar to what Baltimore did in 2012, because when we went in there with Peyton and beat them in Baltimore, they were having offensive line issues. Then they came back to Denver and they moved some guys on the line and made it better for Flacco. And I think, if I recall from listening what was going on in pregame, they were talking about how they were moving guys on the line a little bit
to
help out with protection issues, and it worked. So part of this, and Denver certainly doesn't assume to listen to the kind of stuff like this because we could have done that all year long and didn't. But if you can adjust your line a little bit, it helps with your quarterback. Even if you're not going to do that long term, even as short term, it will help.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's the thing too, because what Romo was talking about, and I usually watch games without commentary on. I took a page out of Shannon Sharp. I don't want them to influence what I'm seeing. If I'm going to be wrong or right, let it be on my own merits, right? But I enjoy Romo, and he's talking about, look, they have this backup offensive lineman who played in the Super Bowl and was horrible, and fans wanted him cut. All right, but he's got some starting experience, so they throw him in there, and and he's big, and like it killed me when Romo said it. If you're big, you can at least run block, and so they just ran the ball and established the run, and that let them throw deep. And it was just the Bills. They came up small. Their defense, we have both been saying it this entire year, this entire season, dating back to the previous season. That defense comes up small, and their solution to it is a tried and true solution. Its name is Von Miller, and unfortunately, he was not able to play. He tore something in his knee. I think it was an ACL. I'm not positive.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the defense came up small. They couldn't stop the run, and then their offensive line got manhandled. And Buffalo's had one of the best offensive lines for years and years now.
Real quickly, I noticed late in the game, again in this one, Diggs was kind of like upset with Allen. Do you think there's a problem there now?
No, those two love one another. Diggs has always been a huge Allen fan and supporter. I think Diggs is probably saying, just force me the ball. Like this whole go from read to read thing works great, but we saw what Cooper Kupp did. In the Super Bowl, we've seen what Brady's done when he locks on the Wes Welker. Sometimes you just have to say it's a throw that's riskier than normal, but who gives a shit? And I think with Allen, he's changed how he's played, and he's mechanically better, and he makes better decisions. sometimes I do wonder, and I'm not going to knock him for this because it kind of goes with that. I do wonder if he sometimes tries to play the game too. I want to
Put too much on himself.
too much on himself, but also just go, okay, he's not open. Let's just move on. And then sometimes people will bash Kirk Cousins for just chucking it to Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, but he gives his receiver a chance. So
Right, exactly. So
sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
yeah, Stephon Diggs is a.
I think Bro does the same thing with Chase. Like sometimes,
yeah. I don't know what to do. Fuck it, Jamar Chase is it's the
All
random.
right. Well, before we get into our pick with the Bengals and Chiefs, I did want to mention something brought a smile on my face that you brought up in the last episode. As I was listening to the game early on, the first thing I'd heard is Burrow's one of his first passes went to Tyler Boyd, and you had mentioned that Boyd would probably be a factor. Now I don't know what the final stats were, but it just kind of made me smile. Like, yep, Poet called it. He was going to that third receiver.
It's such a luxury, and Boyd was a guy who he was drafted in the first or second round, and he didn't run a great 40. I think he ran a 4.5, but just all hands, all routes, just really reliable. He made an awkward pairing when Higgins was the one because neither one of them are burners. I think with Boyd sometimes they don't throw it to him enough. That other guy that they got from Baltimore seems to be taking up the 3 spot. I sometimes wonder if it's because they're going to let Boyd go as a cap casualty, which I do expect. But for as long as he is there, having a legit number 2 wide receiver be your third option, or in this case, fourth option, is a huge luxury.
Yeah.
I hate that team so much.
All right. Well, the Bengals are going back to KC for the second year in a row. And I don't know. Is Mahomes 100% or no?
Yeah, he said he's playing. He has a high ankle sprain, so he won't be 100%. But he's Mahomes.
Yep. I really don't know where to go with this game because my heart says Bengals, but Mahomes is the magician, and I don't really know how it's going to play. I think it's all just going to come down to more about can the Chiefs defense create havoc for Burrow. If they can't, I think Bengals win, but I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say 27-24 Bengals.
I'm taking the Bengals 41-20. No, it's going to be 41-21. The Chiefs are going to get killed, and I don't like saying that, but this sucks. So if you look at the Chiefs' 2 top corners, they're both rookies. That's not good. If you look at who their defensive coordinator is, he plays man coverage, stubbornly plays man coverage, and because of that, Jamar Chase. I'm not going to say the stats out loud. I don't want to embarrass anybody on this glorious show. It's a family-friendly show. If you wanted to see one defensive coordinator get moonwalked by one wide receiver, just Google Jamar Chase versus the Chiefs. Then look at Steve Spagnuolo, however you say his name. That happened. That happened many times. So you have 2 rookie corners against the best wide receiver core in football. You have, unfortunately, the Chiefs have a good pass rush, but the Bengals' offensive line, even with the injuries, is probably a little bit better this year. And, they have a lot of injuries too. So, give them credit for that. When the Chiefs had the same caliber pass rush the past 2 seasons, they didn't get to Burrow. They sacked him in those 2 games maybe 3 times, 4 times. That over 2 games, that's nothing. So when I look at the Chiefs defense, this is what I see. I see babes in the woods who are going to get slattered in the secondary. I see a pass rush that historically they have told me they can't get to Joe Burrow for whatever reason. I do see a linebacker core that can do some nice things in coverage. But at the end of the day, it feels like what's going to happen to the Chiefs is going to be what happens to the Bills. The Bengals are going to run the ball, almost maybe a little bit stubbornly. They're going to just chuck it to Chase or chuck it to Higgins when they need to. And ultimately, I expect the Bengals to maybe punt only a handful of times. Now, if you go to the other side of the ball, Kelsey's going to get his numbers. Mahomes is the best quarterback in football. He's going to do magical Mahomes things, injury included. It is going to hamper him, but the Bengals have gotten to him, and the Bengals don't have to cover Hill. And while the one silver lining, give us both credit, we've said this the entire season. Losing Hill sucks, and the people who are like, "Oh, it doesn't matter," that's not true. You just have to look
it
at
proved to be
it.
mattered.
It matters. A Hall of Fame wide receiver, and that's the trajectory he's on. Very much matters. They don't have the same big play capability that they used to. What they do have is they have a tight end. Tight ends tend to be pretty hard to just take away, especially that one in particular. And they have a bunch of competent wide receivers, so there's no one to take away. The problem is that the Bengals, they've gotten burned when Juju Smith-Schuster was a Steeler. They've also had really good games against him. MVS, that's a guy. Kadarius Toney, okay, he's got big play capability. He could break a big play, but it's just so much more manageable to deal with those types of weapons and Kelsey and a hobbled Mahomes than it is a healthy Burrow and those weapons.
Yeah.
And the Bengals defense has played the Chiefs. They gave up a bunch of points to the Chiefs. I'm not saying that they haven't, but they've been able to stand firm at key points in time, whereas the Chiefs, when they play the Bengals, that defense more often than not does not. And I think it's going to get away from the Chiefs. And the Chiefs, the Bengals turned the ball over a fair amount too, but the Chiefs, they're good for 1 or 2 turnovers almost every game. So I will take the Bengals convincingly.
Okay. Now, last week we talked about when the Giants were going to play the Eagles, and we talked about one thing I brought up was in order for the Giants to compete in this game, they would have to run the ball. Again, I didn't catch much of this game. I have no idea what the rushing stats were. I can't imagine it was that good because they got behind very early.
It wasn't. It was not
good. And of course, the Eagles went and dominated them 38-7. If you caught the game, how was Daniel Jones? I mean, obviously, it doesn't look like it was much, but were they able to contain his running and all that stuff, or what was the deal there?
They kept his running contained, and they penalized the Giants for not having good wide receivers. I know I talk about wide receivers a lot, and I know it's annoying. And the problem is that if you look at the 4 teams, left. The Bengals have wideouts. The Chiefs have Kelsey, and then Mahomes and Andy Reid Magic. The Eagles have wideouts, and even the Niners, who all they want to do is run the ball, have great wide receivers. So it's an important position. They're the new corners. And basically what the Eagles did is say, you don't have wideouts. We don't have to respect them. They're not good enough.
We're just going to shut down your run.
Yeah, we're just gonna force Daniel Jones to throw the ball to wideouts who aren't great. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to say that Daniel Jones played well because he didn't. I'm also going to say that he played better than that stat box says he did. Sometimes you just overachieve and you run into a team that you just
can't. Oh yeah, sometimes you just run into a machine basically.
Yeah, and the Eagles, the Jalen Hurts was like, "I'm healthy, baby."
Yeah,
and it was bad. Shout out to
so with the Cowboys and Niners, I think I chose the Niners, and I think one of the reasons why I chose them is because I was worried about the Cowboys and their turnovers with Dak.
Yeah.
That came to fruition.
Yes.
I don't remember who you chose though. What do I want to say? You chose the Cowboys.
I said I wanted to pick the Cowboys.
Oh, okay.
And then I listed a lot of things that made it enticing, and a lot of those things came to fruition.
Yeah.
And then I picked the Niners because I was listening to this and not this.
Common sense.
Yeah, I was like, just look at the rosters and look at the coach, and look at the roster and look at the coach, and then you have Kyle Shanahan, and then you have, sorry, Wave, Mike McCarthy, Shanahan, McCarthy.
Yeah.
Dak was horrible, and he lost them that game. The Cowboys had a chance to really steal that game, and. You could argue that the Cowboys should have won.
Yeah, I watched some of that one, and I'm like, it's right there, man. All they got to do is put a good drive together. But, yeah, that was pretty amazing that they couldn't get it done. So now Niners are going to go to Philly, which no more warm weather for the Niners here. I really don't know how to pick this game because I'm actually kind of a Brock Purdy fanboy a little bit here. I'm really
makes it easy.
I'm really happy for the kid. I don't know how he's going to be as a pro going forward. I mean, I know sometimes you can just catch lightning in a bottle a little bit, and I know the system works for him.
I think that's what it is, but here's the thing. Because he's played so well thus far, and because he's coachable, he has pulled off the Trevor Siemian where it's like, I'm going to be in this league forever, baby. Let me just hold that. His ceiling, or I'm sorry, his floor is making $1 million to $3 million a year, holding a clipboard. He did something beautiful for himself.
Here's a quick question, though. I think we talked about this lightly on the forum. Let's say the Niners go and win the Super Bowl. Let's say that Brock still plays at a high level. Does Trey Lance become expendable at that point?
Yes, he does, because there's no way you let's say, for sake of argument, we would somehow know that they should keep Lance, and they know that they should keep Lance. All right. Sometimes what you should do versus what you can do are radically different. I could not imagine going to a fan base who has seen multiple quarterbacks do well with almost zero arm strength, Joe Montana, and talent, Joe Montana again, and say, we're going to move off of this guy who brought us our first Super Bowl since Steve Young.
Right.
I can't see that. I also can't see Trey Lance saying, screw you, trade me, but I also can't see him saying, I'm really committed to this franchise as well either. So
yeah, I think that it's really not Trey's fault. It's just an unfortunate series of circumstances.
Yeah, he didn't break his ankle on purpose.
Right, but it's like now it's happened a couple of years in a row, and it's like you got to start wondering about, can we trust him to stay healthy, or can we take this kid who seems to be doing just as much as he is?
It sucks, man. It sucks because the first year he was mostly healthy, but they're riding with Jimmy G because they were a dominant team.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then this year they tried to get off Jimmy G, and the timing didn't work. And I honestly think that they didn't really want to. I talked about that on the board many, many months ago. He got hurt, so it's like, okay, it's Trey Lance time, and then he broke his freaking ankle, and it sucks. The kid's a wonderful talent, and if you go back to his time in college, he's a leader, he's a hard worker, he's an intellectual. I mean, he's everything that you would want to root for in a guy, and he can't catch a break. And the other thing I'll just add quickly is this. Let's say for whatever reason he gets the job again next year. It's hard to believe he's not going to be on a short leash if Purdy's there. And I don't think who's going to trade a first rounder? Who's going to offer enough to make the Niners trade away Brock Purdy? That just doesn't seem easy.
Yeah, nobody, because
yeah. I'd say the Raiders, but they're going to get Tom Brady.
I mean, after that guy from Green Bay that Russell ended up beating out, they won't do that shit again ever.
Cobb?
No. He was the backup to Favre for a little while. And Seattle went and got him as a starter, but then they drafted Russell.
Hasselbeck?
No.
Because he was a Packer too, and then he got
but no, this is a different guy.
I think it was Kevin.
Like 5 games.
He had that crazy Monday night game.
Yes.
Where he threw 6 touchdowns.
Yes. And Seattle said, "Oh, we're gonna throw you the money bags." And then Russell outplayed him in preseason. They're like, "Okay, we're just gonna let you go, brother."
Yeah, I think it was Kevin Kolb because his last name was spelled Kolb. It was insane.
I want to say it started with an M, but I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah. Either way, shout out to Pete Carroll. He was like, "All right, this little Oompa Loompa guy's way better than you. I'm just gonna roll with him."
Well, if it comes down to these 4 teams, obviously because I'm a Bronco fan, I don't want Mahomes to win shit. So he can die a certain death, not realistically, but figuratively.
Yes, you're not literally wishing death.
I would be generally happy to see Purdy, Burrow, or even Jalen Hurts. Yes, I'm saying it on film. It's here. I would be happy for that kid to win a Super Bowl because I was wrong about it.
I'm going to give you kudos, though, for 2 things about that. The first thing is that you feel like you're wrong and you're willingly admitting that. That's rare on the internet. Secondly, just because you don't believe, and this is something that sports fans sometimes take too far, sometimes just because you don't believe in somebody doesn't mean you actually hate them. But in sports fandom and on Twitter, oftentimes they became one and the same. I mean, to me, for Jalen Hurts, if those mechanics stay right, he's going to be okay.
Right. And I say the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Look, if that kid goes out and plays, gets better and improves his consistency with passing, it's up to him to prove me wrong. Like, all I got to do is go out and say, I don't think you're ever going to win a Super Bowl, brother, or even get to one.
Yeah.
If he comes out next year and lights it the fuck up like Jalen did, I'm gonna have to eat the crow, and I will do that. I will fucking do that.
If he plays well enough to get to the Super Bowl, and then they have a Raheem Moore moment, you're not going to be like, you didn't get there. Like we exist in reality.
And look, and right now we're at this break in NFL, and you know this, that we're seeing a bunch of young quarterbacks coming up, and I want to see these young guys get better. Yeah. I want to see Josh Allen get better. I want to see Joe Burrow. I want to see the Brock Purdy's. I want to see Jalen Hurts. Because all the other guys that we grew up with are getting old and retiring. Brady's done. He's gone.
He'll be back. You got one.
I don't care. He won't play. I guarantee.
But Brady, as you know it, is gone. I know.
He is done. Like I love the guy. He is done. He needs to get the fucking memo. He is done.
Well, before he gets Tua'd, that's another guy. I love Tua.
Right.
No, I know what you're saying, because like when for any NFL fan who might want to push back on what Anubis is saying, you've seen your team play with a backup quarterback, and more often than not only are you losing, it's boring. It's really, really, really boring. And if all the starting quarterbacks are shit, then it feels like they're backups. And if you just run through the NFC and the AFC quarterbacks, it is embarrassing. Like in the AFC, you have Mahomes and Allen and Burrow, and then you go
all of them.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go over to the NFC, and you're like, maybe Aaron Rodgers isn't washed, and they just don't have wide. Like, you have to start qualifying. I love Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is not that electric, dynamic quarterback who's gonna, carry you to great postseason success. He's a good player. That's it. And ultimately, I will say this: even as a Steelers fan, Joe Burrow is good for the game. He's not good for the team, but he is good for the game. The charisma, the commercials, the fact that he's likable, it's good for the game.
All right, so to my pick, wow, man, I think the change of scenery is what's going to be the difference here. I don't even know what the weather's going to be like on that day, but the reality is, playing in Philadelphia is kind of intimidating. Purdy, despite all the great things he's done this year, he's still a rookie. He's still a rookie. So you have two very good defenses. I got a feeling that, because I watched Bosa against the Cowboys, and he wasn't near as effective as I thought he would be.
Cowboys, yeah.
I got a feeling the Eagles are going to win this. I'm thinking it's going to be like a 30-17 ball game for them.
I'm going to go. I'm gonna pick the Niners. I'm gonna pick the Niners by 3.
And you have been a Hurts boy for a while.
I just last season I saw some things with him where I was like, I don't know if he's gonna make it, but I see the potential. I see why he is on the football.
Yeah, and I give you a lot of credit for that, because you were always like, he just needs a little more time. And then this year, I was holding back because I wasn't sure if it was for real. And then I started noticing it was for real. He's actually done the homework. He's put the work in. He's got his mechanics down.
Yeah.
And he just looks 10 times better than he had the last 2 years.
He does, and it helps when your team goes out and gets an elite wide receiver to take more pressure off of you. And he's got they put him in a great position. And actually that kind of gets, unfortunately, to why I'm not picking the Eagles. I think the Eagles have a slightly better roster. And today Hurts is a much better quarterback than Purdy. However, I think what the Niners are going to do is they're going to look at an Eagles team which is still a little susceptible to being ran on, and they're going to control the clock, and they're going to ride that Shanahan play calling magic into a 3-point win. And I'm going to take the game to be 17-14. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I will switch. It's going to be a little bit more than that. I'm going to pick the Niners 20-17. I think there's going to be some. Now that I said that, there's going to be like 3 returns and like a fumble brought to the 2-yard line. I'm just going to look like an asshole. But that's my pick. And it sucks because both of these teams are Super Bowl worthy. They both have coaches who feel like they're good. Now, I will say this. If you swap the quarterbacks, if you gave the Niners Hurts, then it would feel like it would be almost unbeatable.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. If Hurts can have a good game in the face of that monstrous defense, and Purdy plays as poorly as he did last week, because he was pretty fucking bad. I'm just gonna be honest. Like we can excuse it. We know why. He still didn't play well. But I just think that it's going to be a Shanahan game where you go, holy shit, you can call yourself to a victory. And so it's going to be Bengals versus the Niners.
Don't give your pick away yet. We'll be talking about it next week.
I know.
All right, everyone. We appreciate you checking out our video for our conference championship picks. We will see you next time with the mastermind, the Poet King.
And Sugar.
And Sugar. Sugar. We will see you next time, and thank you for tuning in to Poetic.
Thank you so much. We love doing it, and we love doing it for y'all.